Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Streaming Media Connect 2024 for our last panel of the day, I believe. Yes, it is our last panel day. It's been a great day of programming, like really great guests, really great topics, really great conversation. So thanks for coming to this panel. Mind the app. Nice play on words, Steve. Streaming UX design best practices. This is a star-studded panel here with really great minds on what to do in this extremely crowded marketplace with the design of your apps. A little housekeeping up front here. If you can name the song and the act that was just playing as we were walking on the virtual stage here, and you're here at the end of the session, you will win a $50 gift card. If you're the first one, sorry, not everyone. Slow down. The first person who named it and who is still here at the end of the session will win a $50 gift card from Amazon via Steve, our great producer. And if you attend more than two or more sessions this week, you will automatically be entered to win an Ozbot Tail Air AI-powered 4K PTZ streaming camera, which is a really cool piece of new tech. You'll automatically be entered. So all you got to do is to come to two panels. Also, put your questions in the Q&A. That's what the Q stands for in Q&A. And put your chats in the chat. Look in the chat for things like links to bios of our panelists and our moderator. Also, look for information about the rest of the content on Streaming Media Connect the rest of this week, tomorrow and Thursday. Also, look in the chat for a link for the Streaming Media NYC conference that we're throwing here in New York City this May 20th through 22nd. I'll be hosting and curating that conference. The link will be in the chat. You'll look at the agenda. It's a really jam-packed 3 days here at the Intercontinental in New York City. There'll be a code that Steve will put in the chat that'll get you a discount pass for the conference. And look at the agenda. There's great fun stuff all 3 days. If you want to be a part of it and you'd like to sit on one of these panels, we do have some seats open. So hit us up. Either now or later. Actually, wait till later after the panel, because right now I'm going to bring to the stage, after I tell you about the YouTube channel where you can see all this great content during the course of this week, Streaming Media Connect's YouTube channel. I'm going to bring our moderator to the stage finally. Nadine Krefetz of Reality Software and Streaming Media is going to host this awesome topic with her usual je ne sais quoi.
That's right. Okay, perfect. So let's get everybody here. Eileen, why don't you come on? And, we're going to try something different here. So Eileen, what was the last device you used to watch something on streaming?
My new Samsung TV. I splurged and bought myself an 85-inch television. So
okay, all right. Brandon, how about you? Why don't you turn your camera on and let us know what was the last streaming device you used?
The last streaming device I used was probably my Android TV that I also just recently bought, just splurged on a big size upgrade. It's in my living room. It's where I watch all my binge all of my TV shows.
Okay, cool. We got two so far. James, how about you? Come on.
Hi there, everyone. Yeah, actually, I have a unique situation. I'm actually visiting my in-laws in the great state of Vermont, and I can always count on them to give me a new experience. Last time I streamed was on their LG TV, powered with a Vizio remote. I have no idea how they did that, but somehow they got it to work.
Okay, I like it when standards are mixing. Esther, why don't you come on and let us know the last device you watched something on?
Yeah, so I would say the last one was through my Chromecast with Google TV.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, so now I think one of the things that I wanted to start off with was things have changed quite a bit. And, we love, Tom, I am so sorry. What happens is there's so many extra people on this call. Oops, Tom, what was the last device you used?
Last night I was testing the Crunchyroll application on an Apple TV 4K unit.
Okay. All right. I am Tom. I am so sorry. In fact, why don't we go with the first question to you, just because you're here, and I'll make it up to you. Okay. So we talked a bunch about what you all do, and one of the things I think of is your responsibilities in the industry have likely changed since you started? So Tom, what comes to mind when you see your change that you've happened?
I think the biggest change is really understanding and moving from looking at devices and screens to looking at contexts in themselves.
Mhm.
A lot of the focus has been on web, mobile, and living room or connected TV as that holy trinity when it comes to application imprints. At the same time, we're starting to see screens put anywhere and everywhere with a desire to be able to watch content there. One of the newest modalities that my team has had the experience of working on has been automotive and understanding how to get application experiences there in a situation that shares some similarity with connected TV experiences being very theatrical, very immersive, but can also be very personal and very intimate, depending on how many people are in the car with you, whether it's a shared experience versus a solitary experience. And how do you build applications to really solve that context well, versus just looking at it as a specific screen dimensions at a specific location?
Okay. All right. Very interesting. So, you know, I'm sure that, in fact, we talked earlier about how many screens we all have. There was a lot. Brandon, how about you? What's changed for you since you started in the industry? And it can be on a personal level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is something to be said about, just how many platforms there are to watch things on now. We were listing off all these different TVs and streaming sticks, and the context of like where in your house you're watching something, and it's so different from sitting on your couch and watching something on your TV to laying in bed and watching like something on your phone. I think there's this unique challenge in the streaming industry to kind of have your design or have your service and your product kind of translate your brand and the content that you're trying to present to the user over this breadth of platforms. And the challenge is how do we identify the needs of the user based on what they're watching and where and how and on what platform, and then what the intent is based on what platform they decide to watch from. And I'm trying to think modularly about all these different entry points that the user has into watching their favorite content nowadays. It's not so straightforward. There are different remotes, different platforms, different touch points for all of these different things, all these affordances to take into account. So it's a very fun and unique puzzle at times.
Okay. Esther, how about you? Since you started off, what do you think has been the key thing that really has resonated as change?
Yeah, similar to Tom, I think for me, it's really been looking with a broader lens. So definitely beyond any individual device type or screen type, and looking at the broader ecosystem. I think in terms of my personal sort of changes is looking at the changing discipline of UX. It's, goes beyond just how UIs look. It's not just a visual look and feel, but it's incorporating, really understanding pain points and needs of our users, leveraging research, which we've always done, but it's quant, data science, and an emphasis on, I think, content design and content strategy, how we're communicating in product. But one of the things that have been most exciting, I think, is, on the YouTube TV side, is really taking into account a broad swath of different viewers coming in with different backgrounds and understanding. Brandon mentioned remote controls, like for many people that are cutting the cord, being really sort of familiar with a remote control with many different buttons, and how do you bring them over to a TV experience that may not have the reliance on those types of shortcut controls and buttons that you might be used to. And so I think it's really thinking about how to modernize the TV experience and bringing along a wide range of different viewers with different contexts.
Okay, I love it. Modernizing the TV experience. And there's so many different places we're going to go with this. And there's questions that we have that each one of them have started to touch on. But Eileen, how about you? What's your thoughts on change, innovation, et cetera?
Changing it. Well, just I can age myself and say that I started in college when I was building flash sites, and buffering video was there. It's very different now. So definitely a lot of change in that regard. We've definitely come to a point where there's so much variety, and there's so much wanting your attention. There's so many availability. So content is going to be king. And we have to make sure that we focus there. And as I think Esther alluded to, content design really has to go into the user experience and making sure that they can find what they need for wherever it's coming in, whether that be from discoverability or serving up the content, because we know our content. So we want to make sure the user can find it effectively.
Okay. James, last but
Yeah.
not least.
Yeah. I really want to second what Esther said about one of the things I've seen change, from when I started to now, is really that evolution of UX being more than just design. When I started, UX was design. But now, because as you've seen, the platform diversity, the competitive landscape, UX, I think in the most successful organizations has become a word about the actual full experience, the experience of using it, but also the experience of belonging and what do you get out of it as a user. And I think that path to be more member-centric, consumer-centric is good. And I think that's, of course, in response to all of the increased competition.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, I would say that some of you are distributed in other locations of you. But the amount of places that you can find things now are the things that the consumer might take for granted, but you guys have to design for. Why don't we look at first, this was kind of a complicated thing that we came up with. So when you talk about your brand, how do you differentiate the brand that you have versus the UX that you have on, any particular platform, and keep them kind of specific to what you're working on? Because obviously an Apple TV is different than an Android phone. Any one of you can start, or I can just pick somebody.
Yeah, I can jump in and start with this one.
Okay.
So
James,
I would say
sure.
that how we look at it is actually totally abandoning the idea that Magellan is going to look and feel the same way on every platform. It's too hard now. There's too many platforms. And in fact, to better aid that user experience, you actually want your app to feel like it was built for that platform. That user knows how to use their remote. So we need to make sure that we support the platform in the way that platform intends to be used. Also, the platforms will a lot of times make you do this, like LG's Magic Wand pointer system. You have to be able to support that. So I think that we can aid in communications and help our users use our products by actually trying not to preserve an identical experience, but instead preserve the identity, the design identity, but not necessarily the same specific experience.
Okay. And, again, so many devices, so many places you can watch. Esther, what are some of the things, because you've got kind of the corporate brand as well as the individual?
Yeah, our umbrella brand is YouTube, and our global mission is to give everyone a voice. And that translates to how we are meeting our viewers' needs and expectations around the different types of content they want to watch. People come in with different expectations, those that may want to watch live, on demand, movies and shows and sports. And so we're always trying to figure out how to offer those experiences so viewers can easily find what they want to watch, while also being able to discover new types of content. As you can imagine, there's a lot of different sort of ways in which to watch and what, from long form to short form content. And so I think right now we have a platform with YouTube where you can get really amazing user-generated content, gaming, music, all different types of verticals. And then we have YouTube TV, which is our standalone live TV streaming service. And we found that the subscribers coming to YouTube TV are coming for not just the content, but the features that we offer. We bring increased interactivity and personalization to live content. And so this is something that has been of interest and of value to a lot of users coming onto the platform.
Let me just ask you one more follow-up question. So Esther, so in terms of a brand, visually or the kind of philosophy, how does YouTube TV kind of stand out as opposed to YouTube? Because they're obviously two different kind of environments.
Yeah, so, our tenet is that we have a design system that crosses both. And so we don't want to create any confusion for viewers just trying to use some playback controls. You might want to fast forward, you might want to pause. How do you purchase? And so a lot of that is shared across with a shared design system. And we believe that's really important because it's focused on creating consistent experiences for our viewers.
Okay.
There are obviously areas where we'll deviate in some parts. And I think we're always looking at each individual journey and what people are trying to accomplish, but also create something so it feels part of one system.
I'm going to go to Tom next. And Tom, you know, one of the things is that, like, what I think of as Crunchyroll has got to be different than what some of the content is. So how are you differentiating, you know, when you present to the consumer, this is Crunchyroll versus this is a particular program?
For our fans, they come because they have a deep connection to the universe as the IP in of itself. That they are very much connected to the stories, the characters, the sequences, the action, the music, and everything around that. And where Crunchyroll comes in is allowing and being that facilitator of fandom to allow our fans to really be able to connect deeply with their specific fandom or their universe in of itself. We invest heavily in terms of our flywheel of being able to bring in items that are adjacent to the content itself, whether it's manga, whether it's merchandising, whether it's theatrical, so that our fans really see Crunchyroll as a way to be able to truly deepen their connection and their engagement with the content in of itself. It's really a focus on, rather than trying to be something for everyone, really trying to be everything for someone, where someone feels like Crunchyroll allows them to be the true fan that they are.
You know, it's interesting how much almost combination of business language and design comes into our conversations. And that surprises me. And because Eileen, when I started off, it was designing CD-ROMs. So there, I'm even older than you. Okay, so Eileen, tell me, like, what are you thinking here in terms of, you know, your opinions?
Of my brand?
Yes, the brand, because you've got the distribution. I'm not going to go with everywhere, but most where.
Yes, we are definitely in a lot of places. We want to be where they are. So we're going to use our app, or we're going to use our fast channels and be on Pluto TV or Samsung TV Plus and whatnot. So we're going to go where they are. But we have a consistent branding. people know that we have a lot of content. So we want to make sure that we can provide that for them, whether they're looking for a specific genre with a channel, or a decade channel for nostalgia purposes, or if they want to actually go just watch a new release, they can go directly into our app and find it. So we want to make sure that we meet them where they are.
How do you do that when you're distributed someplace else? So if someone's not going to Vivo, how do you kind of maintain your brand?
I mean, we do that with our creative art. We have our bumpers, we have our interstitials. We make sure that, you know, our channel art, key art, is consistent in our design system. So we keep that there. We keep our identity effective, and we want to make sure that, you know, we have only certain channels on certain ones that's going to work well. So whatever is going to make sure to resonate with those particular viewers is going to be available.
Okay, Brandon. Same thing for you, you know, in terms of thinking about your corporate identity, your brand, how you present yourself, how do you carry it forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think and everyone's kind of touched on this, or everyone has, but I think in the streaming space, it's really important to have a balance. I think users are coming to our platforms because we have content that they want to watch, and for them, that is the most important thing. So while it is important to, have that impression on the users of who we are as Philo, and, what our brand looks like and feels like and stands for, most often than not, we kind of want to step out of the way of the user watching what they want to watch and not overwhelming them with too much of that personality, taking chances where we have to kind of include those pops of the Philo brand and the personality in the product, whether that's in color or in imagery or in anything else, but at the forefront, maintaining, I think, Eileen said this, content is king, and that is what the users care most about. So trying not to bombard them with too much, but also allowing ourselves to have the space where we think it's, most appropriate.
Okay. So, now we've got consumers who are expecting quite a bit, and they're also expecting potentially how to design their own viewing. So what happens when you need to create different interactive or experiences? What are some of the features that have really kind of worked for you, or things that you like seeing in others? Since Esther's nodding her head, Esther, why don't you handle this first?
Yeah, it's a great question. I do think that when it comes to today's viewers and consumers, they are expecting control and choice to a degree. And I think we look at offering these variables that allow people to create their own personal viewing routines. So an example of that, I think, is like our live guide on YouTube TV. So again, I go back to the remote control. We have a lot of viewers coming over that are really accustomed to using a specific remote control and channel surfing when you go to a live guide. So rather than just giving people a new remote, we were trying to think about ways to make it more intuitive. And one of that was the ability to really easily place the channels that you want up front. You could customize your channels. Another thing is being able to just show relevant data for relevant information for a program, so that you could easily decide on what to watch, or surfacing up really clear curated recommendations based on what time you're watching or what the context is, so that you never miss a moment. And so these are ways we're trying to sort of reinvent how you could get into live TV without just going back to potentially past patterns, but really honing in on viewer pain points.
Okay. James, we also talked about this beforehand.
Yeah, so I think Esther, you bring up a really good point, and we see the same thing here at Magellan TV, is that another thing that's changed is personalization. A couple of years ago meant AI, just meant a recommendation engine. But that is also changing, and we're hearing from our members that it's the ability to have a watch list. Like when you're a part of Magellan, our members are wanting to really kind of own that experience. They're wanting to be able to design their lists and create their playlists and kind of micromanage all of their content. And that's a great level of engagement and interaction. And it's something that is, it's coming out of the users and their desire to really actually, in Magellan's situation, be a part of Magellan for more than just content. And that's what you need to be doing with your services, is trying to position them to be actually not about only content. It's about representing a bit of yourself as you, the member, as you, the subscriber, that this is a part of my identity. This is a service that provides a bigger solution to me. Okay.
I'm still so amazed that the level of expectations people have. But Tom, only because realistically now they're like, I own this. So Tom, what are you thinking of when you're thinking of features that really kind of are the thing that people know you for, or that you actually just think work?
Just piggybacking off of what James said, just that notion of being able to control and curate the experience as they see fit. We have a watch list feature that we wanted to get a better understanding from users regarding what was working well and not in terms of that particular feature. So we conducted usability interviews with fans. And what we found very interesting, the stories that they were telling, was that they had a very long watch list, which from a product perspective, you want to try to keep that tight focus on the content you're trying to get through. But our users were telling us all these stories in terms of how they were actually organizing the list. There was one user who had talked to us about how, he had subdivided the list in his mind in terms like, oh, these first 5 items have to do things I'm actively watching now. And then these other items are kind of what I do on my free time. I've organized things by Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Oh, by the time I get to this point in the list, these are all my rewatches. And it was interesting just to see these mental gymnastics our fans were just jumping through in terms of being able to try to craft the experience that they wanted, but what wasn't quite getting from our particular feature set. As a result, we decided to build another type of list, a custom list, which we branded to be Crunchy lists, which allows users and fans to be able to create custom lists that they can subdivide, organize, rank, sort to their heart's content, so that they could have their watch list really be focused on that. What am I watching now and want to get through? But if they want to take series that they find while browsing, like, cool, I want to kind of pocket that one for later, that there's a very easy way for them to stash that so that they can come back to that. Again, this notion of I want to be able to curate everything to what I want to have it have it be, and then have that be available wherever I go.
Okay. And I know you each can also say yes, that too. And that's the hardest thing about having people who all work in the same genre. But Eileen, how about you? What are your thoughts in terms of what is that feature, that thing, possibly that other people have not already talked about? But if you want to go and elaborate on that, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't confirm, we don't have logins on our app, so it's going to be a little different for as far as personalization is concerned. So obviously the biggest thing for us that we leaned into significantly, as I've mentioned, is FAST and having our linear channels within our app. In the last 2 years, I mean, that doubled our watch time within our apps, which is huge. So that is the thing that we're the most proud of. And, we have that ability to curate that content internally. We have where our AI is under the radar. It's not so opaque and overt, I should say. So we allow our programmers to have shuffling where we're serving up the videos that is going to be needed. We're not like have Taylor Swift right after Taylor Swift. Those kind of things are there, not any personalization right yet. Okay.
Brandon, how about you? In terms of things that you think are just exactly what, a consumer or even, something that you think the company needs. What is a feature that comes to mind?
We've been working on giving the users the ability to browse in the player a lot recently, and we've been rolling out this feature where users can browse content but it's adaptable based on where in the product the user entered the player from. So for example, if the user watches something that is live from the guide, then we give them the ability to enter into a view that shows them the guide while the content is still playing in the background. And if they were to watch something from their saved page, for example, or a show that they had saved or bookmarked, then we would present them with other shows or movies that they have in their saved list, for example. So trying to find ways that we can anticipate what users might need when they're browsing in the player, and trying to think contextually about what they would expect to see there if they're browsing, depending on how they got there. And so trying to move in the direction of a more modular approach to browsing in the player.
Now, in fact, the next question kind of piggybacks on this. So Eileen touched on it, but when we talk about maybe the differences in designing we got AVOD, FAST, TVOD, if anyone calls it TVOD anymore, regular VOD. So you've got all these different kind of modes. They're mostly a business mode, and a consumer doesn't go, I want to watch AVOD. That's my thing. Okay, so what are some of the differences and the important things that you need to do? Like Tom, when you think about the kinds of programs and where people are watching, what's the thing that comes to mind that you kind of have to kind of focus on to make sure the consumer is happy?
So I would say that in terms of focusing on context and the particular modality, being as transparent as possible to the user in terms of what experience they're getting and how best to utilize that experience. For example, with AVOD, being very transparent with them in terms of things like ad breaks, duration of ad breaks, so that there's an understanding of what they'd be getting into versus kind of rolling the dice and saying, am I going to get 2 minutes of ads? Am I going to get 5 minutes of ads? And that it helps to set the expectation in terms of what the experience will be like for the users. And the more that you can be upfront, transparent with the users in terms of what the experience will be and how they can control the experience, the more likely it is that they're going to find it valuable and acceptable to them in terms of being able to consume that.
So in terms of the ad, so how do they know how many ads or where the ad pods are going to be? Are you telling them?
Yeah, so we'll be able to determine that in a given particular ad pod, how many ads, what the duration of the entire ad length is. So that from that perspective, the user can have that expectation of like, okay, I'm going to have 2.5 minutes of ads here, or I'm going to have 5 minutes of ads over a course of 1:30.
Okay. All right. In fact, are all of you doing that kind of thing? Yes, no, shake your head.
So yeah, I mean, at Magellan TV, of course, today we're just a pure subscription service. But I do think it's actually great that we have Esther from YouTube here, because another recommendation I would give to everyone at large is that understand that in the streaming space, there is already a design language that's established by Netflix, it's established by YouTube, and you actually don't even want to rethink that design language. You want to use the same design language as the other large players like YouTube, and YouTube has sort of established how we communicate ad breaks. And even Magellan as a niche streaming service, we constantly get messages like, "Oh, well, YouTube does it that way, or Netflix does it that way. Why don't you do it that way?" And so you just have to accept that, like, no, it's bigger than just Magellan. It's bigger than any one of us. Like, streaming has a design language, and it's actually favorable to just fit into that language, speak the same language.
Okay.
Yeah, I would echo what James is saying. I think ultimately we want to create a viewing experience that's intuitive and doesn't take a lot of work for users to get into a great experience, right? They want to watch either alone or with their households or with their community. And so making that easier usually is aided by patterns that people understand. And so how can we leverage some of those patterns, and I think you can see them with sort of the shape of thumbnails, or being able to, easily swipe a carousel, or like badging something to let you know if it's new release or whatnot. Yeah, so I think for us, regardless of the transactional intent, we aim for consistency and seamlessness. We look across user journeys to identify the needs around discovering new content, maybe jumping back into content or saving for later. And we want to create that seamlessness, whether it's onboarding into a new experience or browsing or playback, so that it's less work for the viewers.
Okay. In terms of, Esther, the differences, maybe designing for the different types of medium. So right now, would you consider YouTube TV a FAST service?
YouTube TV is currently it's live TV. At YouTube, we launched free ad-supported TV shows and expanded our movie offerings on YouTube a few years ago. So this was directly on YouTube. We work closely with partners like Warner Brothers Discovery, Paramount Global, and Disney to offer a robust catalog of movies and TV shows. To Eileen's point, it's really meeting users where they are and being able to sort of deliver the content that they are seeking. And we're definitely learning more about this space, and we'll go for there. We really want to be thoughtful about the content we bring in and to make sure it's additive to the broader experience of creator content that fans have come to expect on YouTube.
Okay. Who next wants to talk about how you design for FAST, AVOD, TVOD, VOD, in addition to anything else that you put on your app? So I think one of the things, so in fact, Brandon, when you think about how your consumers view, I know one of the things that was interesting that you said to me was, you guys make it actually very easy for somebody to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. But what are some of the other differences that you have in terms of when you're designing for the different kind of modalities that people are choosing?
I think it's important to, and I mean, like, have these personas for the different types of users, and to, really empathize with what users are going to want based on what they're watching or how they're watching. Because we have a combination of live content and also non-live content, and between those two types of users, they're very drastically different people. We found that non-live users have a very strong watch intent. They are acutely aware of what they want to watch when they open Philo. They have their selections of shows that they keep up with and save so that they can watch, at their leisure. And that's key there, leisure for them. They have a very low ad tolerance. They want to have an uninterrupted experience, and they just want to, like, sit back and just watch a couple episodes of their favorite show for a couple hours, right? And then we also have our live viewers, and they're a little more fluid, and they come in with the intent to, like, browse for something to watch. They have their favorite channels maybe, and shows that they catch when they're on or at certain times, but they are also interested in exploring the breadth of the content that we have to offer them. And so they're really interested also in recreating that feeling of like traditional cable, being able to surf between channels, you know, between ads, or when they simply just want to move on from what they're watching at the moment. So trying to put those, you know, personas into, you know, like separate categories, and trying to think about how we can build features around those two different types of people. And, you know, as Esther was saying, you know, how can we make those experiences as intuitive as possible as well? Like, we don't want to just continue to add on features if the user isn't going to be able to use them, or if they're going to be, you know, hidden behind, you know, like super user behaviors. So trying to just keep in mind, like, what would I as user be expecting to do, or what would really delight me to be able to do when I'm watching a certain type of content.
Okay. You know, I try to get you guys to disagree with each other. It's impossible. You're all so nice. Eileen, how about you? What's when you think about your design approaches, you've got so many different areas you're going to. Is there something that it drives you or you think about a lot?
As far as like VOD, and we are entirely ad supported. So that's, you know, something that I'm always remembering, and making sure that we respect the user's time with that, going, you know, the countdowns, or making sure that our ads are, you know, lower for now. We have 8 minutes and 4 breaks per hour only. So that way we keep the user active and engaged, and we make sure we work with our data science team to make sure that the ads are contextual as well. So all of those things packaged together to respect the user's time, and be able to find what they need, whether that be AVOD, where they can, you know, after a playlist is done, go find something else very easily, and those particular users, or going in back and lean back experience and just watching their decades channel.
Okay. Decades. Yes. So, okay. So without kind of spending too much time on any one area, which is the persona that you guys think about when you're designing? So Tom, you've got, you know, you're doing some work on whatever part that you're working on. Who's the persona you're thinking about? Just one.
I would say that it's hard to think about like just a specific persona. Like there's the Eileen persona that does this, and that. It really comes down to thinking about what is the feature you want to add and what job you're trying to solve, because different personas could be doing different jobs at any given point in time. And it feels a bit reductive to try to like peg a specific thing at a specific persona. Well, that's too many P's there. In terms of really understanding how can you solve this well and in the right context. For example, the way in which I might try to integrate parts of our flywheel, like shop, into a mobile experience is going to be very different from a connected TV experience. Within a mobile experience, you tend to do a lot of different things on the application. And sometimes it's not just content watching, but you're also messaging, you may be browsing, you may be trying to kill 30 to 60 seconds. There's a lot more opportunity to find opportunities to engage users with Shop at that particular point in time than, let's say, connected TV experience, where that is very content forward. And that if you're booting up your application, whether it's on your Samsung TV, on your Google TV with Chromecast device, that you want to get to content as quickly as possible. And if I have to sit through a 60-second ad about merchandise, you may not be too happy with that. So it's really trying to understand what type of job that we want to solve at that particular moment, and then understanding what is going to be the key moments that are either going to lead to a user really loving that feature or just outright rejecting it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
James.
You know, and with Brandon and Tom, the way that you guys are describing user personas and, you know, features, and there's nothing wrong about that. Although I try to encourage my own team to actually remember that it's user personas. I like to think of more as just like their context, and they're not about features. They're about a user and their problem. And so that's one thing that we like to think about here at Magellan, is about not so we have marketing personas, like you have the big bucket personas, but I would really encourage everyone here at the talk to really think about it as more about what is the context of that user at that moment, and know that a user can have different contexts. So for example, when they first discover you, they're in a discovery mode, especially here at Magellan. Like, you know, people have their favorite documentaries, but it's not like, you know, everyone is coming to Magellan for just one documentary. So they're in an exploration mode. Okay, when I have that problem set, what are the features that are required to help you discover? Okay, then you get hooked into that series. Well, now your context is totally different. Now I need to communicate to you about like, hey, come watch that next episode, or, you know, come check out that related content about that series, or, you know, so we like to think about it not as a rigid, like, you know, oh, this is the persona about people who need temporary downloads. It's like, no, our personas need to be about a problem and about a context of that user is in. So just and I know Brandon, Tom, you guys probably would agree with that, but I think it's important when we talk about personas and context that we keep them user and problem centric.
Okay. All right. In fact, why don't we see, does somebody else want to talk to this? Or should we go on to a different question? No. Okay. Yes. Esther?
No, I mean,
Oh, no. Okay. Oh, you flashed on screen. Okay.
I think the only thing I was going to add is that maybe the thing that's interesting is also adding on what everyone said, is that there are singular experiences, but TV is such a shared experience if we really think about it. And so personas in my mind start to, you know, suggest sort of like static representations of people, right? But I think that there's this opportunity to think about multiple people watching, sharing, whether it's in a household, whether it's through a community of interest. And I think that there's a lot of ways to think about how to design for that.
Okay.
I would add on that it's not to say that having personas is non-constructive. I think it's more around that persona may shift to look at the specific problem at the specific point in time. That there's specific context that you might want to form when you're looking at a particular feature set or a particular problem versus having one of, let's say, 5 personas, which is set up across the entire company and must be applicable for every given point in time. There's just so many different, like, especially within anime, there's just so many different type of people, from people who have their entire life identifying with anime and growing up with anime versus people who are just discovering it and becoming passionate about it. And it's really hard to try to say, well, I can just pick one of these personas within the spectrum and run with it. It's really going back down to like what you said, Esther, around the specific problem, the specific time, and understanding, okay, from this context, what might be this different type of situations. And to your point, James, around that might shift where, you know, the super passionate anime fan may be a bit more novice when it comes to a particular item versus someone who's brand new to anime, but maybe an expert in this particular area.
Okay. Anyone else before we move on to the next topic? No. Okay. So one of the other things that came up a lot when we were talking previously, we talked about kind of supporting the business, and, you know, you each had some interesting comments about how there were things that you had to think about that were related to doing what? Keeping the consumer happy, keeping the consumer engaged. Do you want to each touch a little bit on, like, if you each go for one thing that you're doing? I know that whatever one person says, the other person's going to go, I wanted to say that, but let's start off. Brandon, how about if we go with you? So there's, you know, we talked beforehand about, you know, the ease of being able to leave, but what else should we be thinking about?
Are we centering
In terms
around
of, so
another
you're
feature,
supporting the
or-
business, and you actually need to do different things to actually make sure that the business thrives, and so that not just the consumer is happy, but the business is happy. So what are some of the things you guys each mentioned? Contacting people through emails. You also mentioned being able to make it easy to leave and to resubscribe. You also mentioned being able to help with what's up next. So why don't you talk about one thing that you guys are doing, and then we'll let each of the others talk about another thing.
Sure. Yeah, and something that we actually recently worked on was creating these like custom ad pods or advertising sites that we use. And we had taken, so I mean, the problem was that sometimes we just don't have enough ads to fill an ad pod. So then in that case, we're losing that ad revenue if the user can't finish the whole way through. And so we took huge inspiration from YouTube's Moments of Zen. So shout out to Esther. And we began to design what we've called scenics, where we were able to fill in these gaps in the ad pods with landscapes and scenes that are familiar to the user, like camping in the mountains or relaxing on the beach, and juxtaposing televisions and file imagery onto those scenes. We've also begun to roll out these spots that also feature members of our own team here at Philo, where the user gets to see some of those personalities that are working behind the scenes to give them their best viewing experience possible. And we just ask people here at Philo to talk about what they do, and we have all these like zany commercials that we've shot. And we found that both of these strategies have been performing extremely well. And we think that users really appreciate not having those little moments of brevity where they get to see more of who we are as a company, and as people who also love the same shows and movies that they do.
Okay. All right. Next business feature we think about. So something that's actually going to help the business. Eileen, you're smiling a lot. So how about we go with you?
Well, obviously we have the challenge of not having logins, so that subscription is kind of out, but we want to make sure that the user stays engaged. So there's been, we've had trivia within, basically being more creative with our advertising. There is the fulfillment issue. That's absolutely true. So we have our own that pulls in, but outside of those particular ad pods, we'll have trivia that keeps the user on to find out what the answer is. There might be bumpers. There might be a sponsorship of the entire hour, those kind of things. So we are creative in that way for a business perspective.
Okay. All right. Esther, how about you? Do you have some things that you want to talk about? Again, I know everyone wants to talk about what each other is talking about, but one thing that's helping the business and maintain the relationship with the consumer.
Yeah, I think that when we approach UX, we are always looking at all the facets, the business goals, and putting the user needs first. With our onboarding experience at YouTube TV, we want to make it really simple for users to be able to choose what package and what add-ons that would make a really great viewing experience for their household. Last year was Sunday Ticket NFL. We were able to bring exclusive out-of-market games on Sundays, and we gave users the option to be able to watch it with a bundle on YouTube TV or base package, where you get 100+ channels and you get Sunday Ticket, or you would also be able to watch on primetime channels. So in a lot of ways, being able to lean into the user need for more flexibility and choice helps us just be able to deliver on that and create increased value.
Okay. James, in terms of another thing that's not what we already talked about, is there something you can think of that you're doing to help build your business, keep the consumer happy at the same time?
Yes. In today's super competitive landscape, I feel like sort of the idea about accepting churn and accepting that people will kind of be revolving door. It's becoming kind of something that's in vogue to be okay with. I'm still much more of like let's retain, let's have retention, especially as a niche service. And so one of the things that we think a lot about is it's about creating community, but understanding that doesn't mean that you need to be running like a subreddit. It's about making sure that you can connect with something that user really identifies with. So thinking about how can my service actually fit inside their own view about themselves. For example, one of the most common reasons someone would join Magellan TV is that they're a lifelong learner. So how can we in our messaging and our email on-ramps really resonate with that type of language? Because then we become a way that they demonstrate themselves that way. And so I would really encourage people to think about how can we connect on that level. And in many ways, I actually think YouTube TV in some ways is also doing that, although kind of perhaps more of that tool angle, like, oh, I use YouTube TV. And like, that's the kind of behavior patterns that you're wanting to see out of your members.
Okay. Tom, we're talking about passionate viewers and you've got them. What is the other thing that you think about, aside from what everyone else has mentioned, that you do to keep the business and the consumers happy at the same time?
So there's a lot of work that goes into how we talk about all the parts of our content flywheel together in a way that solves for those business needs, but also stays true to our fans' expectations and their desire to really connect with the content and watch the shows that really really emotionally connect with them. And so there's work that we have to do behind the scenes in terms of supporting our curation and programming teams, in addition to those flywheel businesses, about how do we talk about not only the content, but also the flywheel aspects on our homepage presentations into themselves. If you talk all just about content, you lose the opportunity to connect it with other opportunities like theatrical or shop. If all that you do is talk about shop or theatrical, you lose the actual connection to the content of itself. So how do you create the right balance between all those elements while also making it pretty easy to be able to program for specific territories? Crunchyroll is available pretty much globally, in the way in which we talk about not only the content of the flywheel in North America may be different from the way we talk about it in Europe. And so all that complexity needs to be made as simple as possible for the teams that actually go to create that type of programming, so that when someone goes to Crunchyroll.com or they launch a Crunchyroll application, it's a well-composed, well-curated experience that balances their desire to watch content, but also the other aspects of the IP that they connect with.
Okay. You know, I think that one of the things that you guys have done today is I've learned new words. We've got centric, crunchy list, accepting churn, which is not necessarily new, but are there any trends in user experience that you would love to see go away? So something that you've got and it's just something you prefer not. Doesn't have to be on your own service, preferably not on your own service. That way I won't get you guys in trouble. Eileen, a trend that is out there in the wild that you wish would leave?
I don't have one that necessarily is going to leave, but maybe it kind of goes hand in hand with that. The fact that we aren't really focused a lot on accessibility enough, I think that's going to be a big trend for now. I mean, we are coming from a place of having like small, short form content. So we don't necessarily have to have captions, but we want them. So we're going to really try to get there on a much broader basis and making sure our app meets, more visibility standards as well.
Well, that is something. So you're basically saying that you want to make sure that the content that's out there that is not accessible becomes more accessible to people who have a variety of
yes, because it's been about like just the general design and getting the content there is really, I guess, maybe the trend of user experience, but we should lean more heavily into the accessibility factor as well.
Okay. All right. So we'll just go through you guys quickly. Brandon, is there something that just you want to see go away?
Oh man. Yeah, off the top of my head, like that corporate like Memphis illustration style that you see everywhere on the internet these days, just to go for something different, I guess. I think we're all familiar, that type of illustration that features like 2D geometric visualizations of like humans that are in like these large disproportionate features. I just think it's oversaturated, and I think that brands can be a little more creative in the way that they present their personality, and especially in this space where it's just so hard to compete with such vibrant brands. You really have to find like unique ways to convey who you are as a company. So
okay, that absolutely strikes me as very relevant. James, how about you in terms of what should go away?
Yeah, I'm gonna broaden this out to more of a business trend. I think that the endless content merger, the streaming mergers that are happening right now, I understand why it's occurring, but I think that is racing towards the bottom about just trying to have your service be only about access to content. And I think ultimately that path of just merging your identity out is a flawed future.
Okay. All right. I know this is a question. It's funny because not only am I putting you guys on the spot, but I'm asking you things about, what you're thinking about. But Esther, not necessarily your company, but obviously out in the wild, what do you think should go away?
On a really just like tactical level, tool tips, personal tips, being inundated with explanation on how to use something. Ideally, we're creating intuitive experiences that people are able to use. And with TV, just making things really simple. There is less control with these D-pads, and so making it really easy to use. Okay. But in terms of broader trends that I'm excited about, just generally, again, that TV really offers a way, or this whole modernizing the experience of viewing, I think, is going to be a way for us to create experiences where something that you're maybe watching, we could be watching a live broadcast, but something that you're experiencing is very different from something that I'm experiencing. And so there's this opportunity to bring in things like views on YouTube TV, where I can connect my fantasy account and I can watch that when I'm watching a sports broadcast, where I can see key plays and catch up when I don't have a lot of time. And so I think this whole opportunity to create unique experiences that are personally relevant for individuals or for a community of viewers is really what's exciting for what's coming next.
Tom, I'm going to let you get off the hook here. What about in the future? What do you think of, or what's influencing you to see something good that's going to be happening in the future? Hopefully that's going to impact streaming in a positive way. We only have a couple minutes left, so you need to talk really quickly, or just have one short thought.
For me, in terms of like what I'm thinking about in terms of like evolution or how to kind of push the UX design of these streaming applications, I'm really looking at how to make things more heroic or more romantic or more comedic with respect to their presentation. There's a lot of, for lack of a better term, sameness when it comes to, especially on CTVs, grids with heroes in the top right, presentation with a collection of the cast in a powerful shot. There's a lot of stories that can be told and a lot of meaning driven from it. And that I'd like to see how we can push presentation and storytelling within these designs. So it's not just I'm relying on a particular key visual to be able to sell what a particular piece of content is, but that I can get its tone, its conceit, its momentum very quickly in terms of whether this is something I want to become my next new favorite obsession, or one where it's like, great, I've saved myself time. I'm not going down a path that I may have felt like wasn't the best use of my time, onto the next discovery there. To what extent can we really be able to lean into what these larger and more vibrant screens provide?
Okay, so we get larger screen thoughts. Brandon, how about you? Are you thinking larger thoughts for TV, for connected TVs, or are you thinking thoughts for mobile? What do you think is something in the future that's going to help us?
I mean, not to be unoriginal, but I think, to echo what Eileen said, I think a focus on accessibility is really key. I think I mean, I think generally in the education of design, I don't think that we talk about it enough nearly. I think people enter into their careers into design and they have no wits about them as to how to really plan for accessibility. And I think that it's something that just generally as an industry, we could be better about bringing to the forefront. I think it's something that is so important. It's just totally key to making a successful product that is available to everyone. And I think that is in this day and age, it's important to be stewarding that going forward.
Okay. Is there anything else? We have like practically no time left. We're just going to go over, but that's okay. So any other thoughts that someone has here, or shall we end it?
I just had one final thought of, I mean, I feel like the biggest piece everybody was talking about is the fact that old adage of don't make me think. So we just always need to continue to focus on that and ensure that the users understand how to use our platform even without teaching them.
Okay. Evan, don't make me think.
That's my rule always. Don't make me.
Okay, don't make me think. Okay.
This was a great panel. Great moderation, but also just great content all panel long. Thank you all very much. The comments recognize that. The walk-up music was Hank Mobley, This I Dig of You. The winner is Ron Brerer. I think that's how you say it. You want a $50 gift card. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Nadine, for great moderation. Tomorrow, Streaming Media Connect starts at 10 o'clock promptly with licensing, scale, and the state of sports streaming. With the recent announcement of Spulu, or as I call it, disco balls. I think sports streaming is a really hot topic right now. So tune in for that. Thank you for everybody for sticking around. Also, all the videos from all the panels all week long from Streaming Media Connect 2024 will be on Streaming Media's YouTube page. Steve will put that link in the chat now. Also, it's available on Streaming Media's website. Thank you, everybody, for a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.